guys, welcome back to the ThatJustClicked podcast.
Today we're going to be talking about the D.B. Cooper plane hijacking. Are you ready?
Heck yeah.
Okie dokie. The D.B. Cooper hijacking. This case is the only unsolved case of air piracy in commercial aviation history. It was actively investigated for 45 years and was officially suspended in July of 2016. But it continues to request that any physical evidence be submitted for analysis. On Wednesday, November 24th, 1971, Thanksgiving Eve, a man going by Dan Cooper bought a one-way ticket with cash on Flight 305, leaving from Portland, Oregon to Seattle on a Boeing 727-100. Cooper sat in a seat in the rear of the passenger cabin, and the flight was about one-third full and left at 2:50 p.m. Shortly after takeoff, Cooper gave a flight attendant closest to him, Florence Schaffner, a note. Schaffner assumed that the note was Cooper's phone number and put it into her purse without opening it. Cooper whispered to her, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." Cooper asked Schaffner to deliver a message to the pilots in the cockpit, asking for $20,000, all in $20 bills, and 4 parachutes, 2 primary and 2 reserve. He also asked that a fuel truck be standing by in Seattle to refuel upon arrival. Schaffner left to deliver the message to the pilots, and when she came back, Cooper was wearing dark sunglasses. She comes back and it's just a completely different person.
She's like, oh, I can't find him now. He's like, I can't see you, you can't see me.
Cooper was described by the 2 flight attendants who came in contact with him, Florence Schaffner and Tina Mucklow, as calm, polite, well-spoken, and thoughtful. They said that he was never cruel or nasty, and he didn't seem like the hardened criminal type. Cooper ordered a bourbon and soda and paid his tab in full, attempting to give Mucklow the rest of the change. He even offered to request meals for the flight crew during the stop in Seattle. FBI agents assembled the ransom money from several Seattle area banks, 10,000 unmarked $20 bills, and made a microfilm photograph of each of the bills. Cooper was offered military-issued parachutes, but rejected them, and instead demanded civilian parachutes with manually operated ripcords. The aircraft landed at the SeaTac airport at 5:39 p.m. The money was delivered to him in a knapsack along with the parachutes. Cooper ordered that all the passengers, Schaffner and senior flight attendant Alice Hancock, to leave. Cooper outlined his flight plan to the cockpit crew, a southeast course toward Mexico City at minimum airspeed possible without stalling the plane, which was roughly 115 miles per hour. He also asked that the plane be at a maximum of 10,000 feet and that the landing gear remain in their takeoff or landing position. He also asked that the wing flaps be lowered by 15 degrees and that the cabin remain unpressurized. He agreed to stop to refuel again in Reno, Nevada. At around 7:40 p.m., the plane took off again, and Cooper told everyone on the plane to stay in the cockpit with the door closed. At around 8 p.m., the aft air stair apparatus had been activated. 13 minutes later, the tail suddenly moved upward, which was most likely the time that Cooper jumped from the plane. You are ruining this for me.
I'm sorry, I'll get rid of it.
FBI agents later found his clip-on tie.
Yeah, me too.
He wears a clip-on tie and dark sunglasses. Wow,
Wow.
what a cool guy. Orders a bourbon and soda, gives a note to flight attendant, and has to tell her that he has a bomb.
He's like, no, actually, please read the note.
FBI agents found his clip-on tie, his tie clip, and 2 of the 4 parachutes he asked for on the plane. Many different...
Wait, why did he ask for so many parachutes?
Well, we'll get into that later.
All right.
There were many different people who saw him and provided very accurate descriptions of him. It is thought that the composite sketch made by police is extremely accurate. Cooper ordered a bourbon and soda and paid his tab in full, attempting to give Mucklow the rest of the change. The alias used was Dan Cooper, but the case is now known as the D.B. Cooper case. This is likely because a man from Oregon named D.B. Cooper was questioned but later ruled out. The news reporter mixed up the names of who was being questioned and the name that was given to Seattle, which led to the case being known as D.B. Cooper. 10,000 unmarked $20 bills and made a microfilm photograph of each of the bills. Cooper was offered military-issued parachutes but rejected them and instead demanded civilian parachutes with manually operated ripcords. The aircraft landed at the SeaTac airport at 5:39 p.m. The money was delivered to him in a knapsack along with the parachutes. Cooper ordered that all the passengers, Schaffner and senior flight attendant Alice Hancock, to leave. Cooper outlined his flight plan to the cockpit crew, a southeast course toward Mexico City at minimum airspeed possible without stalling the plane, which was roughly 115 miles per hour. Authorities believed they were looking for a suspect that was familiar with the Seattle area, someone who may have been in the Air Force, and someone who was likely financially desperate. He may have been a thrill seeker who made the jump just to prove that it could be done. He agreed. They also think that he may have been Canadian because he asked specifically for negotiable American currency, which is something that most Americans wouldn't say. Plane to stay in the cockpit with the door closed. At around 8 p.m., they believed that Cooper was probably very knowledgeable about flying technique, the aft aircrafts, and the terrain. He carefully chose the Boeing 727-100. He also may have timed his hijacking around a 4-day weekend. 13 minutes later, because it was Thanksgiving weekend. This may have been so he had enough time to get out of the woods where he landed and get back home in time for work. The tail suddenly moved upward, which was most likely the time that Cooper jumped from the plane. You are ruining this for me.
I'm sorry, I'll get rid of it.
The FBI speculates that he lacked crucial skydiving skills. FBI agents later found his clip-on tie.
Yeah.
Special Agent Larry Carr said, "We originally thought Cooper was an experienced jumper, perhaps even a paratrooper. No experienced parachutist would have jumped in the pitch-black night in the rain with 172 mile per hour wind in his face."
Unless he was very experienced.
I wasn't finished with the quote, you idiot. I have to say the quote. Many different...
Wait, why did he ask for so many parachutes?
Well, we'll get into that. We originally thought Cooper was an experienced jumper, perhaps even a paratrooper. No experienced parachutist would have jumped in the pitch-black night in the rain with 172 mile per hour wind in his face, wearing loafers and a trench coat. He also missed that his reserve parachute was only for training and had been sewn shut. So not only did this guy jump out of a plane when the weather was bad, wearing loafers and a trench coat,
Well, maybe
in the middle of the night, but his parachute was sewn shut. He also did not request a helmet,
Same.
which usually you wear a helmet when you jump out of a plane.
YOLO.
It's usually customary. The FBI thought from the very beginning that Cooper probably did not survive the jump. However, his body was not recovered.
Wait, where was it over?
It was over the Lewis River in Washington.
Like on the river?
They don't know for sure where he jumped, but it was somewhere over the Lewis River, because they know that he jumped around 8:13 p.m., and they were over that part of Washington at that time. Cooper was questioned, but later ruled out. The news reporter mixed up the names of who was being questioned and the name that was given, which led to the case being known as D.B. Cooper. In the 45 years the FBI actively investigated this case, there were over 800 suspects interviewed. They narrowed it down to a list of 24. Today we'll be talking about 4 suspects. Authorities: Robert Richard Lepsey, Richard Floyd McCoy Jr., Robert Rackstraw, and Dwayne Weber.
Why do they all have weird names?
Been in the Air Force, and someone who was likely financially desperate. He may have been a thrill seeker who made the jump just to prove that it could be done. They also think that he may have been Canadian because he asked specifically for negotiable American currency, which is something that most Americans wouldn't say. First, we'll talk about Dwayne Weber. Dwayne Weber was a World War II Army veteran, and he served in at least 6 prisons from 1945 to 1968 for burglary and forgery. He made a deathbed confession 3 days before his death in 1995, in which he told his wife, "I am Dan Cooper."
What if she had no idea what that meant?
She didn't.
That's so awkward. Wait, what? Who did that?
Who? What do you mean who?
What person said that?
Dwayne Weber.
Imagine him. Well, they actually have very similar syllables. No, think about it.
I mean,
Dwayne.
Dwayne.
Think about this. Dwayne Weber and Dan
Cooper.
It's the same amount of numbers. All adds up in the end.
The number of numbers in each of those names is 0. To get out of the woods where he landed and get back home in time for work. Dwayne's wife, who was unfamiliar with the D.B. Cooper case, went to her local library to research it. She found notes in the margins of a lot of the books about the case that she recognized as her husband's handwriting. Special Agent Larry Carr said, "We originally thought Cooper was an experienced jumper, perhaps even a paratrooper." Dwayne's wife also recalled nightmares that Dwayne had had about jumping out of a plane and leaving fingerprints on a plane. Wind in his face.
Unless he was very experienced.
Like the hijacker, Dwayne liked to drink bourbon. I have to say the quote. He also made a trip alone along a riverbank in Tina Bar, Washington, where ransom money was later found in the same area. Paratrooper. No experienced parachutist would have jumped in the pitch black night in the rain with 172-mile-per-hour wind in his face, wearing loafers and a trench coat. He also missed that his reserve parachute was only for training and had been sewn shut. So not only did this guy jump out of a plane when Dwayne's fingerprints did not match the fingerprints left on the plane, and neither did his DNA, and there was no other direct evidence tying him to the hijacking, so he was eventually eliminated as a suspect. He also did not request a helmet.
Same.
which usually you wear a helmet when you jump out of a plane.
YOLO.
It's usually customary. The FBI. The next suspect we will be discussing is Robert Rackstraw. Survived the jump. However, his body was not recovered.
Wait, where was it over?
It was over the Lewis River in Washington.
Like on the river?
They don't know for sure where he jumped, but it was somewhere over the Lewis River, because they know that he jumped around 8:13 p.m. and they were over. Rackstraw was a retired pilot and ex-convict who served in an Army helicopter crew during the Vietnam War. He physically resembled the composite sketches. In the 45 years the FBI actively investigated this case, there were over 800 suspects interviewed. They narrowed it down to a list of 12, but he was eventually eliminated as a suspect in 1979. He, however, re-emerged as a suspect in 2016 when a letter written in December 1971 was decoded and matched 3 units Rackstraw was a part of in the Army. Today we'll be talking about 4 suspects: Robert Richard Lepsey, Richard Floyd McCoy Jr., Robert Rackstraw, and Dwayne Weber.
Why do they all have weird names?
First, we'll talk about Dwayne Weber. Dwayne Weber was a World War II Army veteran, and he served in at least 6 prisons from 1945 to 1968 for burglary and forgery. He made a death. An Army veteran who served 2 tours of duty in Vietnam, one as a demolition expert and one as a helicopter pilot, both of which are tied to the hijacking.
So awkward. Wait, what?
After his military service, he became an avid recreational skydiver with aspirations of becoming a Utah State Trooper.
Actually have very similar syllables. No, think about it.
I mean...
Dwayne?
Dwayne.
Think about this. Dwayne.
On April 7th, 1972, he staged the best-known so-called copycat hijacking with the same type of plane, 4 parachutes, and asking for $500,000. He left a handwritten note and jumped out over Utah. He received a 45-year sentence because of this hijacking, but escaped after only 2 years and was later killed in an FBI shootout 3 months after. Dwayne's wife, who was unfamiliar with the D.B. Cooper case, went to her local library to research it. She found notes in the margins of a lot of the books about the case that she recognized as her husband's handwriting. Before his death, he was asked whether or not he was tied to the D.B. Cooper case, and he refused to admit or deny and leaving fingerprints on a plane. Like the hijacker, Dwayne liked to drink bourbon. He also made a trip alone along a riverbank in Tina Bar, Washington. It's interesting that he was in jail for a copycat case, but like he could have been Dan Cooper in the first place.
Yeah, why would they just think it was a copycat?
Like maybe the first one just worked so well, so then the second one he was like, I don't have to be as careful this time. And that's why I got caught. The FBI does not consider him a suspect in the D.B. Cooper case because he was not the same age as people thought he was at the time, and he did not match the physical description. Also, no other direct evidence tying him He was reportedly in Las Vegas the night of the hijack and in Utah the next day having Thanksgiving dinner with his family. The FBI also said that he was a much better skydiver than Dan Cooper was, which is really funny. They were like, this Dan Cooper guy, of course, we don't know who he is, if he survived or not, but, like, he's terrible at skydiving.
Oh, I have to draw an ugly one.
Is it a picture of me?
How did you know?
Wow. The final suspect we'll be talking about today is Robert Richard Lepsey.
How about you don't?
I feel like I have to burp.
Well, I had to burp,
I
so.
don't feel good. Okay.
Yeah,
This
that's
suspect sticks out because he was already missing before the hijacking occurred. All the other people were, like, accounted for leading up to the hijacking, but this guy was already missing.
Like, actually missing or just missing?
I mean, they don't know if he, like, just kind of left. He disappeared from his home in Grayling, Michigan in October of 1969, and 3 days after, they found his car at a local airport, and he had been reportedly seen boarding a flight to Mexico. After the hijacking, his family members came forward and said that Lepsey's physical features resembled those in Cooper's composite drawings, and that the clothing was very similar to what Lepsey had to wear to work.
Clip-on tie?
No, like the suit.
Oh, that made me uncomfortable.
The FBI wanted to get a sample of Lepsey's DNA to cross-reference it with the DNA found on the clip-on tie in the plane, but Lepsey was declared legally dead in 1976.
What does that mean? I meant, what do you mean legally? Like, was he not actually dead?
I don't know. This is just what Wikipedia said.
Well, I'm glad you're getting your sources somewhere good.
I know. My sources somewhere good.
Yes.
His daughter stepped forward to submit a DNA sample of her own to the FBI in 2011.
Imagine how betrayed he must have felt.
Well, he was dead.
Well, still.
But the results were unclear if it was a match or not. And after that, the FBI made no further public comment about Lepsey.
That's too bad.
So that's everything.
That's everything?
Yeah. Who do you think did it?
I feel like the guy who went to the same, was it a river?
Yeah.
I feel like the guy who went to the river, who was that again?
That was, hold on, man. Oh, that was Dwayne Weber.
Yeah, I feel like it was him, because, like, none of the other ones were reported to have been to that same spot, and that's a little sus. Unless he lived there. Not on the river, but you know what I'm saying. I said sinking.
It's so weird because in this case, you can either look at D.B. Cooper, well, I guess Dan Cooper. You can either look at Dan Cooper as, like, a criminal genius or just a complete idiot.
Is there which one of them is the most suspected to have done it?
Well, different people have, like, there are different people who were investigating that have different opinions. Dwayne Weber is a really popular suspect, but at the same time, his fingerprints do not match, and neither, like, his overall appearance doesn't match. Are you okay?
Yeah, but look at that! What did you say again?
Like, Dwayne Weber,
Yeah.
his fingerprints didn't match, and neither did his
How did they
physical
have the
description.
fingerprints? What did he do? I meant, no.
Well, he drank his bourbon.
And he left the glass? I would have thrown that right out.
It is interesting because he left the glass and he left his tie and his tie clip.
Mm-hmm.
But he took the note with him. Like, the note that he gave to the flight attendant, he took it back.
Oh, so as if there's not evidence of him being
Well, that's
the one
why
who did it.
That's why it's hard to tell if he's a genius or an idiot.
Yeah.
Because it seems like it would be dumb for him to leave anything behind.
Unless he
But
wanted
if
the
he-
tie as like a signature piece.
Well, yeah, it seems like it would be dumb for him to leave anything behind, but maybe the things that he left behind for a specific reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the other guy that they think was the copycat, Richard Floyd McCoy, the reason that they knew it was him was because he left a note behind, and they matched
Yeah.
his handwriting.
Idiot.
Well, that's why him as a suspect makes sense, but also doesn't make sense.
Well, I feel like it's not him, right?
Well, we
Wait,
don't know.
what about the guy on his deathbed? Because that's really sus. Like, why would he tell his wife that he was D.B. Cooper as, like, his last thing, unless he was a big prankster? Because he's not going to get anything out of that if he's dead. Like, he's not going to get any, like,
I mean,
emotional help.
it could have just been that he was, like, obsessed with the case.
But why wouldn't she know that?
I don't know.
Sometimes I roll on the water.
I mean, it could have been some form of, like, mental illness with him. Because
it's mental illness, isn't it?
he did extensive research about Dan Cooper because his notes were seen, like, in the margins of books in the library.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, he had nightmares about it happening to him.
Oh,
So it could have just been that his mind was, like, consumed with this case,
yeah.
and he just, like, felt connected to it.
In my
Yeah,
head,
38
I
minutes.
had
And we're gonna have to cut a lot of that out.
I know. Well, are you done?
Well, I don't know what else to say. Let me see if I can find some more details.
It looks like I'm drawing an aardvark.
In 1980, a young boy and his dad. Are you okay?
Ew.
A young boy and his dad were camping near Tina Bar, and he found, like, bags.
The boy or the band? I didn't mean that.
The boy found rotting packages of $20 bills that matched the serial
Rotting.
numbers.
Were the packages rotting or was the thing rotting?
All of it was rotting. And he found $5,800 worth of $20 bills.
Do you think that the guy, like, died and that's why it's not recovered, or that he just couldn't find it? Why did he not hold on to the money when he was doing
Well, that's
it?
the other thing. It doesn't seem like he planned this very well.
No.
Because he just kind of got on this plane and he was like, you know, I'm going to ask them
his
for some
identity
money.
was, like, obvious the whole time. Well,
Yeah.
I meant, no, what he looked like.
Yeah, like a whole bunch of different people saw him.
Yeah.
He walked right up to the counter. He did pay with cash, but, like, that wasn't
But you can do
suspect
that
at the time.
anyways, yeah.
Yeah. Also, this was in 1971, so
Uh-huh.
I'm sure, like, plane tickets weren't as expensive then, right?
No.
The plane was only a third of the way full, so there weren't that many passengers. Also, it was only a 30-minute flight.
What? Oh, yeah, because if they were going to Seattle, it's not very long.
The other thing that's weird is that he hadn't decided on the specific route from Seattle to Mexico City.
Mm-hmm.
He, like, discussed it with the pilots, and they, like, found the best route together.
That's really funny.
So that means that he wouldn't have known where to jump because he didn't know how he was going to get there.
I feel like he's actually dumb. Like, the more you talk about it, the more I feel like he's stupid.
Yeah, like, the more details you read about, the dumber he seems. But at the same time, he pulled it off. Like, we still don't know who it was.
He could have just been hiding for a long time, and that's why no one, like, saw him.
Yeah. Or he could just be dead. It looks like the dog from The Simpsons.
Oh god, my drawing technique is on. It's on up. Sometimes I go out on the water.
And what else should we talk about? We probably only have like 20 minutes worth of recording.
I don't know. What happened after that? Tell them about 9/11. Don't tell them. I meant tell them about how things changed plane-wise.
I don't know how things changed plane-wise.
Do you know anything?
Do you know anything?
Not about Dan Cooper. I'm not Dan Cooper fangirl.
Oh my god, you're Dan Cooper. We've solved it.
Shut up. I don't like you.
There is that picture of you from 1980. My back hurts.
Is there anything else you have to say?
Not really.
Well, are you going to say anything, or are we done here?
I'm trying to think of if there's anything else. There are just so many different possibilities of what could have happened or who it could have been.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that's weird is that, like, so many people saw him that they're pretty confident in their composite sketches, and yet most of the suspects don't match the sketches.
Yeah.
So that is kind of weird, because it seems odd for him to let so many people get such a good look at him, but maybe he wanted that. Like, maybe he disguised himself somehow.
What if he was, like, about to get, like, plastic surgery? Oh, was that a thing back then?
Well, there was another suspect who, so it was a transgender person, and they transitioned from a man to a woman.
Yeah.
After this happened. And so they think that, like, maybe she, like, did the hijacking before she became a woman. So that's why no one recognizes her.
What reason do they have to believe it's this random woman?
I don't remember.
Because, like, they can't just find a random transgender person and be like, that's it, we've solved it.
We've solved it.
Good work, boys. One for the books.
Good one.
Okay, I don't appreciate your sarcasm.
I will find it. Her name was Barbara Dayton. She served as a Marine in World War II.
Oh.
She also worked with explosives and construction and aspired to have a professional airline career, but she couldn't obtain a commercial pilot's license.
Is it because she was trans?
I don't know. Oh, she claimed that she is the one who was DB Cooper, and that she did it disguised as a man. I guess she didn't have her gender reassignment surgery until... No, she had it before the hijacking, but she said that she staged the hijacking disguised as a man to get back at the airline industry for not giving her the license.
Well, what if her saying that is just her way of getting back at them? Like, what if she didn't actually do it?
She also said that she hid the ransom money near Woodburn in Oregon.
Yeah.
But eventually she, like, went back on that whole story.
This could just be a publicity stunt.
Yeah,
by her to, like, get back at them, but not in, like, an
She went back on the whole story once she found out that she could, like, still be charged.
Oh.
So, like, she I feel like that kind of
Why did
rules
she
her out.
go back on it though?
Well, she was talking about how it was her, and then she found out that she could still, like, go to jail for it.
Well, yeah, no
So then she was
duh.
like, oh, that wasn't me.
Cool.
She died in 2002.
Oh, that's recently. Oh yeah, I guess because this was only the 70s.
Yeah, it happened in 71, and then it was looked into until 2016.
2016.
Yeah.
So it was an open case for that long.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
they're
they
assuming that
still,
the
like,
person's,
accept-
not alive, right?
Well, it was a middle-aged man, so he probably would still be alive, just pretty old.
You're right. He'd be like a grandparent. What if someone's grandparent was D.B. Cooper?
You're like, your grandpa's just, like, telling you stories of the old days. He's like, oh, one time I stole $20,000 from a plane.
He's like, but I don't have it, actually.
And then his grandkids are just like, oh, silly grandpa, going crazy.
Yeah, like, what if he has, like Alzheimer's or something? It's like, that one's fun, isn't it? Sorry, I'm getting very carried away.
Are we done now?
I mean, I've been done for a year, so.
How do we end it again?
Just say thanks.
Thanks. It's an avocado. Thanks.
Do you want to just stop it?
Well, we should probably, like, say...
Built-in pen holder. Tune in next week for,
No, wait, we need to say something
what
else
do we
first.
do in Mondays?
Who knows?
So, is that it?
That's it.
Cool. Well,
Cool beans, man.
still unsolved. Very good.
Oh, yes. We're not gonna solve anything.
Well, maybe. Okay. Well, maybe not. But, yep. Okay, that's it. Thank you for tuning in to our second Friday podcast. Come back Monday for a fun episode, and Friday for a new mystery. Goodbye.
Goodbye.